God damn it, boy.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of Honda Street Garage. Today I'm going to be showing you how to put on a Devsport front splitter. I put the Devsport front splitter on my Civic yesterday, but something happened with my memory card and a bunch of footage got corrupted, including the intro, the outro, and a couple of other things. Take a look at it and enjoy. I'll be back with you in a second. I'm going to attempt to install this Devsport front splitter onto my front bumper and slash lip today. Now this splitter has been installed on Charlie's car already, so it actually has a couple of install holes on it. Probably use most of those existing holes. It's a pretty straightforward process. You basically have to, put screws, nuts and bolts, however you feel like. They actually do have a mounting bracket kit. We're not going to do that. I think what I may actually do is take the lip off of the front bumper and attach it, because it mostly attaches to the lip more than the bumper. So I think that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to get the front lip off of the bumper, and then I'll try to marry the two, and then once I can put that on, then I'll deal with the two front support beams. I'm not sure what you call these things, these little things here. They're just like support brackets, basically. Okay, so I've removed all the screws for this front lip. One of the things I did was I put the bumper on a chair here. That way it's in a nice, easy position to work on. Got all the screws pulled out of it. Just gonna pull this guy off. So we're gonna pull the lip off here. So I'm gonna come over here and place the lip on the bumper here. Try to get it to a good position, and then start to run some screws. So we'll see how far I get here. Be back in a second. Okay, so I got a little screw right here. I don't know if you can see that sticking through the bottom of the splitter. I've lined the lip up as best as I can. I push down onto the screw, so I've got a guide spot right here. I'm not 100% on if this is gonna be dead straight, but I'm hoping it will be. Just trying to get these first couple of holes in, just to line it up, is really what makes this challenging. Now, if I had a drill, definitely make things a little easier, but just to show you, using hand tools. All right, so I've got the first guide screw in there. We've got to kind of line it up to see if I can get this on there straight. So it is a bit of a process for sure. Okay, so I've got the second guide screw in. Now what I'm going to do before I put any more screws or anything in, I'm going to mount the lip onto the bumper and make sure that everything still looks nice and even. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the lip off of the splitter, put the lip back onto the bumper, and then go ahead and put screws all in the splitter, because I have two mounting points that kind of line it up, and then I can just run. It's a little difficult to get to the screws for the lip with the splitter in the way, so that's why I'm going to go ahead and do that. So we've got this thing on, it's pretty much centered. Devsport right there. Looks pretty much centered, looks a little off, but I mean, by all my measurements, I think what it is that you've got this little space here. So once that, tightens up, then it'll actually look really even. And once I finish putting all the screws in the bottom, then we'll work on installing these little support guys right here. So we've got most of the screws in. Now we need to work on these. This is going to be a little bit more tricky. We'll see what we can do. We need to get a little wrench and loosen these. Okay, there's a trash can behind me anyway. Got a drill with a little drill bit. All right, I've loosened these things, mark a little spot right here. I'm gonna take a self-tapper. So now I've got a guide hole. Okay, got that side in. Now I've got this little nut here I'm going to put on the back of it. Go fish that through. That'll be fun. That's tight. Nice and tight. I'm going to do the next one. Okay, so my memory card died. I don't know what happened, so I had to swap out my memory card. So I've got the splitter on. Looks pretty good. I had more footage, but it has been corrupted. I don't know what the fuck's going on. But yes, here's the final product here. So yes, you can see the Devsport front splitter on. That is on. Now today we're going to be doing something also to the car. Most of you have noticed in a previous video that my Tach kind of reads off a little bit on the higher end side. So what I'm going to do today is show you how to correct that. There is a different process that you could go through to make sure it's 100% accurate. We're not really going to do that. We're going to make a small adjustment and then see how it works, and then just drive it down the street and then see how close the Tach is on or off, and then make another adjustment if need be. Now the easiest way to do this actually is to hook up an external tachometer, compare the two, and then make adjustments. I'm not going to do that because I don't have all that, and that's just a lot of unnecessarily hooking up when you could just drive it down the street, and we just want it close enough, honestly. So yes, the VTEC should be around 5600, so if it hits right in that ballpark, I'll be happy with that. That tells me that it's pretty close. Okie dokie, so let's get started. The first thing we got to do is obviously remove this bezel here. If you're familiar with the EG Civic, it's kind of nerve-wracking and easy depending on how your setup is. One of the difficult things is that there's a screw here, and then normally you have to pull this hazard switch out, and there's a screw behind that. However, when we put this back together, we didn't put the screw back because someone had already broken it. I actually need a new fresh piece because this thing rattles around quite a bit. So if anybody out there would like to send me a new fresh nice perfect bezel for my quote-unquote show car, that would be great. Hit me up on Instagram. So we're gonna get started. We're gonna pull this out, pull the gauge cluster out, and show you how to adjust that. Okay, now it definitely makes it easier if you have a removable steering wheel, for sure. I've gone ahead and taken the two screws out. It's ready to kind of come out. This is really hard to hold the camera in here and kind of do this, but okay, you usually need to pull from this corner first, work your way over, reach my finger deep in here, pop that out. All right. Okay, then we're gonna take that, set that off to the side, and now we have a gauge cluster. I'm gonna pull that out. So I got the screws removed. I'm gonna finagle this thing out of here. Okay, so we got the gauge cluster out. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is pop this little thing off here so we don't lose it. Now we need to get this little glass plastic cover off, which consists of obviously these little tabs here. I'm not going to be able to do this while holding the camera, but what I do is I start pushing this tab in and the one on top of it, and then kind of pull these two apart. You can see it start to pull apart right there. All right. Okay, so we've got the cover off. You have to be very careful. Do not play with these. Do not spin them around. Leave them exactly the way they are. Now that you can actually ruin your gauge cluster by kind of doing this. So if I turn this over, you'll notice that there's 3 screws here. 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3. These 3 screws hold the speedometer in. On EK clusters, there's 4 screws. But I'm going to remove these 3 screws right here, and then the entire tachometer assembly will lift out. So I'm going to go ahead and be very careful not to be aggressive with these screws. When you go to put these screws back in, do not over tighten them, just make them snug. All right, so I've got the screws out, and now I can just actually very carefully lift the tachometer out, put the cluster off to the side. Here we have our tachometer independent from the gauge cluster. And if we turn it around, now this is not the same for all gauge clusters. This is particularly EGs and I think the JDM clusters. It actually has 2 adjustment screws on the back. I think for certain models, maybe even the USDM model, I cannot remember, there's only like 1 little screw. The way this sort of works, I don't really know 100% on this. There might be someone else out there who can, you know, in the comments section correct me. These 2 basically control the tachometer. I think this side is for low RPM and this side is for high RPM. And I could have this backwards. So I'm gonna make a couple of adjustments. Mine are not gonna be the same as yours. Very carefully. Stick the screwdriver in here very carefully. I'm actually gonna adjust it there, drop it into the cluster. I'm gonna put the 3 screws back in, and like I said, do not over tighten them. Make them snug. I'm gonna plug the cluster up and see how the tachometer reacts. So be back with you in a second. All right, I've got the tach bolted back in and I've got the gauge cluster plugged up. You'll notice I don't have the bezel on it, and that's because I want to check it and see how the tachometer reacts. Okay, well, it seemed correct, but I think I actually have the 2 screws backwards. So, you know, it's always trial and error with these type of things. So I might, even myself, I don't know everything all the time. So I'm going to take this back out, make another adjustment, and then drive it around and go from there. Okay, so I made my adjustment, and I think I was actually backwards. I think this one here adjusts the high end, and this one adjusts the low end. I could be totally wrong and not know what I'm talking about right now, so just keep that in mind. I'm sure everybody will let me know in the comments below. But this is how you make adjustments, trial and error. You know, you just got to figure it out. So I'm going to put it back in, give it a shot, see what it does. Okay, well, I just went for a ride in it. I didn't want to film it just because it didn't matter. And it actually seems pretty dead on. VTEC is crossing over at about 5600, which is, I believe, where it's supposed to. So for now, I'm gonna leave that adjustment there. I'm gonna put this gauge cluster back together. Okay, I got everything back together. Do just one last little test, just to make sure she's good. Alright guys, well, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, smash the like button, click subscribe if you haven't already. I will see you in the next episode that should be coming up this week. We're gonna get busy putting rear disc on the EJ1. We're gonna take it off the 4-door and put it on the EJ1. So that's what's coming up. Expect a how-to on that. So if you wanna keep up with me, follow me on Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, and Instagram is probably the easiest place that you can follow me, keep up with what's going on, because you can just post a picture, and easiest place to get in contact with me. Thank you guys all so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace out and keep on living your dreams.
Damn, but ain't easy.